Hello, wherever you are in the world. I am in beautiful Nairobi. You can see a lot of green behind me. My name is African Queen Mo, and I am based in Cardiff, as well as in Nairobi, Kenya, and also in the coast of Kenya. I've just come back from my trip, and I'm feeling so rested, and I enjoy myself in Mombasa. Whew, I really encourage all of you guys as much as you can to take a trip, get away from your normal environment because we are living in some very difficult times. Well, today I can say that I've finally come back and I've rested, and I wanted to talk about something that's quite dear to my mind now that I am finally growing up a little bit late in my life. Just because you see, when you lose a parent late in your life, you realize that there's a lot of shielding that they have been doing for you for a long, long, long time, which many people haven't had the privilege of experiencing. But if you have all your parents alive until you're in your late 50s or going to 60s and whatever, it means actually that they have provided shelter for you and a kind of covering. So now suddenly when they leave, you feel a little bit exposed. There are many, many decisions in my life that I have taken under the knowledge that, okay, well, everything doesn't go well. I have a shoulder to lean on, I have someone to fall back on, and that's usually my father, right? Well, that's not the case anymore now. Now I have to face the reality, and I'm sure many of you guys understand this who have lost your parents. The people who've lost their parents are so much more, can I say, awake and in tune with what's really happening in the world. One cannot just live life according to one's, fleeting thoughts, impulsiveness. This impulsiveness has to go away at some point because one has to live a very intentional, realistic, woke life today on our minds. So let's get to the topic of our discussion today: decisions. The decisions that we take that affect not just ourselves, but also our family members and all the people that we care about and that care about us. And also all the decisions that external forces would be happy to help you make and to take advantage of. I've been listening to a lot of videos online, and recently there's been a lot of chit chat in the background, murmurings and disappointments, basically, by people who live, especially in Western countries. Um, right now, you know that we have a new government in power. A lot of people were looking forward to seeing positive changes coming out of the Keir Starmer government, the Labour government. And why am I talking about the Keir Starmer government? Why? Because I am both UK and an African citizen, and I live my life in both countries. Okay, so both of these affect me one way or the other. And apart from that, I'm also concerned because we have so many young people and also older people like myself who have made decisions, right, to leave their homelands in Africa to go and take refuge in the West with the hope and expectation that they will be shielded from the problems of Africa and also that they would gain from the benefits of the developed countries, and especially in terms of the healthcare, education, jobs, and peace, and basically a tranquil environment in which to raise your children. Unfortunately, that issue seems to be challenged right now by what is actually happening. What is the reality today? In the UK, we have a situation where the current Labour Party is not doing anything about reducing the cost of gas, electricity, taxes, especially mortgage taxes, national insurance, which is basically the social security. The benefits for the elderly are reducing, and very soon they're going to be experiencing higher cost of heating, risking their actual lives. Okay. Meanwhile, the salaries haven't gone up since the 80s. We are seeing people complaining about the high cost of living, low incomes, high expenditure for accommodation, for food, people having to share rooms in houses. When I was in the UK, I had a job where I was actually cleaning student residences. And when I went there, I was quite surprised to find very many people who were professionals renting rooms, individual rooms, sharing bathrooms, sharing kitchens, toilets with other adults. This is like living in boarding house facilities as a professional adult with degrees, That is just the accepted rule of thumb that, well, if you can't afford a whole house, then you have to share housing with complete strangers, people you don't know, you never grew up with, who have different habits and different expectations of what it means to live in a house together. It's not that I'm criticizing it. What I'm saying is that most likely many people did not go to school or to college to come out to go and live back in a sort of dorm like facilities because they couldn't afford a house of their own to live in. Yeah. And again, when I was in the UK, I noticed that on the high street, so many shops have closed down. We had Debenhams that closed so many shops. There was also Marks and Spencer that closed many shops down, and other big, beautiful department stores where I used to love shopping. Many of these, department stores had closed shops because of the cost of rent and the fact that many people could no longer afford the services. People were not shopping. Many people are buying secondhand clothes, even in those countries. They're going basically to what they call the charity shops to purchase secondhand clothes. And I was one of them because literally the new clothes get to the point where they become unaffordable. So when people can no longer afford anything anymore, when they can no longer afford the high cost of living, high cost of food, high cost of transport, the transport by trains is so expensive in the UK. Cost of buses is also expensive. Even if you get your Oyster card, it's very expensive to travel, especially when you have a family that needs to travel. If you buy a car, then you have like about 4 different types of costs associated to it. Okay, you have, your annual road licenses, you have your regular licenses, you have your parking fees. There are so many costs associated to owning a car that many people decide not to even buy a car at all. Yeah. And then, of course, the high cost of insurance. Yeah. In the workforce, we have insecure jobs. We have jobs that are basically contractual jobs, maybe like for 1 year or for 6 months, things that you cannot really plan your future on. Jobs for which you cannot even take a bank loan with. Yeah. Because they're no longer permanent, pensionable jobs around. The few jobs that are available are just like contractual, they are very, very insecure. A lot of the job advertisements, especially in the UK, are fake. That's another really, really sad situation that you'll spend hours and hours applying for jobs that literally do not exist. So these are the kinds of problems that we face in the workforce. The jobs that are available for people who have degrees, especially Africans who, for example, are very highly educated, you'll be disappointed to find that you cannot find a job in your field because you'll find that your degree program is probably not recognized in the UK. Even if you graduate from a UK university, there's no guarantee that you'll be hired or that you'll be even considered for hiring based on your names. Based on your names. Yes, one of the biggest problems in the UK hiring field is racism. I hate to say the word, but yes, the big R is there. And I really hope that, like basically discrimination on factors other than your capacity and ability to perform the function of the job. Again, if you move away from another country, for example, you move from a country like Kenya or Nigeria, South Africa, or wherever, and you go to a country like the UK as a professional. For example, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're a teacher. You'll find you have to go back to school, okay, for you to be able to work at the same level that you were working in your country. Yet, what is very interesting is that when the people from the UK and the US and wherever come to our countries, they ride on flights that are run by pilots, that are flown by pilots that are taught in Africa. They go to hospitals run by African doctors. They don't ask for their credentials at that point because they need the services. Yeah. And many of them are very happy with the turnout or the fact that they can be seen by a doctor quickly and treated. But when those same doctors want to transfer their skills back to those countries, they are required to go through a whole list of new pre qualifications. Yeah, which makes it impossible for them and also kind of very discouraging and forces them to work below their level, to work maybe as carers instead of doctors, nurses, and not just doctors and nurses, but even professionals like researchers, pilots, people like those. You find them working blue collar jobs, working in care homes and wasting their skills. And in the meantime, they become unemployable if they want to go back to their countries. Okay. So we have, a situation where we have like 500,000 people leaving the UK every year, of which over half of those are students, but many, a significant proportion of those, more than 10% of those are actual British citizens, UK citizens running away from the UK because of the high cost of living and the poor quality of life in the UK. And unfortunately, that situation is not improving. I, being a UK citizen, came back to Kenya to look after my parents because I felt I needed to be here. And sure enough, when I came, I found that my father was not well and I stayed on. And unfortunately, we lost him about 6 months later. Now I'm here looking after my mother who has dementia because of the fact that I cannot reconcile to myself the fact that I have to go back to the UK, probably to work a blue collar job when I am a professional, well educated, well traveled, okay, who probably could not be placed in any particular organization because most likely they would not recognize my qualifications or for other factors that are not to do with my abilities or capacities to perform the job. Yeah. And then then I would be left with the option of going to work in a care home to look after an elderly person when I have my own elderly person here to look after, my own mother who needs me. Okay, where am I going with this discussion? I'm coming from the more general situation that we have in the UK to the more specific issue of decisions, sticking with the topic of decisions. Now, a lot of people want to make decisions for us, okay, unfortunately, in this life. You'll find that it starts with, our upbringing as Africans. We've been taught to grow up, to listen to our parents, to listen to the elderly, to listen to our teachers and to our professors, to listen to the leaders, and to put our own decisions and own thoughts in the back. I would like to implore upon us as Africans to not try and impose decisions on other people, that we make decisions for ourselves. We will be responsible for our decisions if we make them ourselves, much more than if somebody had to make them for us. So, for example, I myself, being a married woman, made a decision to come back, leave my family in the UK, and look after my mother. Why? Because that is priority to me. We are a small family. I have only one brother and one sister, and they are both not available to look after my mother full time because they have full time jobs. Okay, I am the person who doesn't have the full time job, who had to negotiate with my partner to say, you know what, we have an elderly woman here who needs my support. The only other option is probably to put them in a care home. Now, we do have existing care homes in Kenya, and many of them are very good, by the way. Very good. I think I've showed you a video where we had a care home, Nico Home, which came over to look after my mom. And, they pay home visits and they can come to your elderly person to cheer them up and to talk to them and to check on them. And I would encourage, for those of you who have no choices like myself, to do that. But what I'm saying is that the idea is that I made my own decision. I am making my own decision. I am not sure that the decision is the correct one, but I believe that it's the correct one. Okay. You may not be sure at the time, but somehow something tells me, yes, it's correct, because everybody is already telling me that my mom is glowing. She is glowing. I'm so happy that I've opened a book, things that I've learned working as a carer, basically as a support worker for people who are living with disabilities and or people who are living with challenges such as depression in the UK. I've learned how to take records and I'm doing that for my own mom now. Yeah, there's nothing more satisfying than doing that. Even though I do terribly miss my family so much, I really miss them. We are in the process right now of trying to figure out a mutually beneficial way of working around this issue. Now, I was giving you an example of my own personal situation. I'm sure you have your own personal situation, you guys. Probably you borrowed funds to travel, to live abroad, and you need to repay those funds back to your families back in Africa. Or perhaps, you have jobs and you have school that you attended and you're hoping to get a job abroad over there. You probably thought that by moving abroad, you were going to expose your children to better quality education and that you were going to have access to better quality healthcare, which was affordable for you. And most likely, you are actually accessing all of that right now. Except it may be that you're acquiring free education, but you may actually not be acquiring quality education for you and your children specifically. You may be able to access healthcare for free, but it may not actually be high quality healthcare for free. For example, you may have to forego an actual face to face doctor's appointment for a telephone appointment. You may have to forego religious education for a more public education, which teaches things that go against your own beliefs and systems and values. So you have to ask yourself, is it quantity over quality or quality over quantity? Yeah. And again, we know that recently in the UK, for example, we have so many Africans encouraging other Africans to transfer and move to the UK, despite the fact that the UK economy is struggling at the moment. The fact is that we still have that colonial mindset of the past where We were colonized by the British, and therefore we must expect that they have to know what they're doing. Well, how about if they really don't know what they're doing, guys? How about that? Yeah. And so, even if you want to encourage your fellow Africans to travel and to come abroad and to run away from Africa, you must be responsible then for their decisions. Yes. If I'm going to say, oh, you guys all come to the UK, come here, this is how you do it. This is how, prepare yourself this way to come, this place, yeah, you don't have to live in Africa, and all that. Then you better be responsible when they come to the UK and they cannot find jobs. Yeah, maybe the job that they got was not the right one for them. It wasn't a good match. They were not able to move into a different type of job, and therefore they lost their visa benefits, and now they're being, removed from the country. You know, you are responsible indirectly. You are responsible. I think that if you made a choice to move to the UK, you made that choice by yourself. You're under no obligation whatsoever to give advice based on anything on your own experience to anybody else coming into the UK. Really, we are not under any obligation. And in fact, you might be doing them a disservice. Yes, a big disservice. This is a personal choice, it's a personal decision. If you want to talk about your experience in terms of you came to the UK and you have your personal experience, talk about it. Provide your details. Let people contact you individually. There's no one size fits all for people who are coming from Africa to the UK. The fact is that the UK is still a very hostile environment, not just for Africans, but even for the British themselves. Many British people are leaving, especially the young people. Yeah? Many of them are leaving. We are facing a situation of crisis amongst the black community in the UK. We have a high and escalating case of knife crime, black on black violence, young children taking their own lives. We have heard about that. Racist attacks just based on the color of our skin. Jobs and job opportunities not being made available for qualifying blacks and Africans. Things that we don't like to talk about. Most likely you'll get some sort of, pushback on that issue. We are usually forced to keep mum about issues that affect us. But yet, if people of other color talk about this, then it's okay. But it is not okay for us to talk about it. Fact is, you have a right to talk about your experience because that will also stop people from immigrating into countries which are hostile towards them. Again, let's not talk about the weather because, that's something that you cannot change. Once you're going to Europe, you know what you're going to face. And anyway, I don't really complain too much about the weather because they make clothes available for the weather. They also have heating and other things, but you have to be able to afford them, right? The weather is yes, it can be gloomy, but there are some sunny days. So the weather is not the main reason, really, because I can say that we have probably even harsher climates in countries like the US, where I went to school, where we had minus 20-degree wind chills in Minnesota, for example, where we had snowstorms. And right now you can see the turbulent weather in North Carolina, hurricanes and things like that, that you don't actually see in modest countries, in countries with modest weather like the UK. Okay. So we have young people now who are traveling. They're running away because of the high cost of living. Let's not talk about loneliness. Let's not talk about mental health. In the UK, the majority of the population, I would say over half of the population in the UK, are taking some sort of mental health support, either drugs or therapy, because of the fact that we have a broken down system. The community, the society is broken in the West, guys. It is broken. Yeah. So your quality of life and the oppressive environment can make it extremely difficult for many people to cope. And this is why I say that one has to take responsibility when one keeps encouraging Africans to leave Africa, a continent that is full of sunshine, quality food, community support, a continent where everybody can have a roof over their head, even if it's just made out of, leaves and branches, a place where living in car is not normalized, a place where not eating a meal in a day is not normalized. You cannot ask Africans to leave Africa, the continent where everybody, when they come here, want to come back because of the Africans who are so warm and hospitable towards visitors and continue to be. Now, I don't want to romanticize poverty in Africa. I don't want to romanticize the bad governance and toxic politics in Africa. I don't want to romanticize it at all or to even sweep it under the carpet. All I am saying is that whether you go to the UK or you go to Gulf countries, the fact is that you will be faced with challenges. Challenges are everywhere. You face loneliness, you face low quality of life, you will face high expensive cost of living, you will face things that affect your mental health, okay, including discrimination and it may be problems to do with access even to basic things like a haircut, being able to do your hair, being able to go out, being able to go and sit on the beach, a quiet life. Yeah. So, what I want to encourage people is to make decisions for themselves. We should be responsible for our decisions. Let's stop trying to make decisions for other people. Let's stop trying to influence other people's decisions, even quietly, based on showing them a reality that doesn't exist. Because it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. For the vast majority of Africans who live abroad, the reality is that life is tough. And only a very tiny proportion of Africans in the West are doing well. Most of the Africans in the West are struggling to survive. And many of them are now saying that they're not going to be sending money home. Some of them are even saying that they're not going to get married, they're not going to have children. They're adopting some very strange beliefs and values just because of the struggles and the stresses of living abroad. So, guys, living abroad is not necessarily the best life. It's not. I have an uncle who told me when I was in the US coming back home to Kenya with my young child. He told me several times, and he was a very successful businessman and farmer in Kenya. And he told me, you know what? If you put the same energy that you put into working abroad and living abroad in Africa, here in Kenya, you will succeed and you'll be happier here. And this is a man who actually studied abroad. He studied in the UK. He said, you'll be happier here and you'll do well here. And sure enough, he passed away and left an inheritance for his children, and his children are doing well. So, guys, let's just say there's no one size fits all. I'm not criticizing everybody who provides free advice on the internet. What I'm saying is that please do not push it to the point where you are almost making Africans disrespect and dislike their countries, and also push their parents into poverty to try to get them to go abroad. Because, guys, this thing is bigger than you think and it's deeper than you think. So let's continue talking about these issues because they're important to us. Thank you for your time. I apologize for the long video. But again, many of you used to say, this is why you follow me, because you like my long videos, yeah? So remember to take a holiday. That's the one decision I can ask you to take. When you're able to travel or go home, come home to Africa, breathe fresh air, come home and, get re-energized, and let's enjoy life in Africa. And thank you very much, guys. Those of you who are living abroad in Britain and the UK, reevaluate your lives. Think about it. Don't be afraid to make decisions to even return to Africa if things get too difficult for you there. It's okay to say it didn't work, yeah, and I need to go back home. And if it's working for you, good, keep it up. That's fine. But remember that there's always plan B. Remember to subscribe to my videos, guys.